Hi, everybody. I forgot to put up my little note that says going live in 5 minutes. Oops, it is what it is. So I hope everybody recovered from the week. Some of us went on a holiday, which is great. I love the picture, Sally and Tammy. They were amazing. Hi, Julianne and Charisse and Tanya, and I see Tammy's there. I'm assuming Sally's there someplace, so hi to everybody. So I thought I'd keep the project small today instead of starting a big new project. And I had some leftover paper from that Prima Nature Lover that I did my last big project with. And I thought, somebody said to me, could I make more cards? And so this is what I came up with this time. Thanks, Tammy. I think they're pretty nice too. I just want to give you a little bit of background information. So I was privileged enough that Tammy sent me the salutations. She sent me these 2 stamp sets, and I've used them in another project. If you look back on my YouTube channel, you'd find it. I used them in another project, and I went, I want to use them again. Whatever you can stay, Tanya. Thanks for coming and joining. So we're using this friendship stamp today, and we're also using, oh, they actually both come out of this set today, the Shake It Off. And if you want to know what the name of this one is, it's You Make Me Happy stamp set. Tammy has them in the store. It's the Salutations #1 from Echo Park. I've used this Happy Birthday before on another, and I used this leaf before, and this one is called Thanks Stamp Set. So Tammy has both of these in the store right now. And the other thing I used today was I used these 2 dies. This one says thank you, and this one just says thanks. And I think they have a purpose. So you need both of them as far as I'm concerned. And I put them on these 2 cards here, and of course the stamps are on the 2 bottom cards. What I'm going to recreate today, I made this one in black and I really liked it, but then I got carried away on my craft again. So today all of the cards are being made using the black artisan cardstock as layering pieces. So we're going to get started. I'm just going to set these to the side because I'm not really sure what order I'm probably going to do them in, but maybe something like that. So I'm just going to set them over here so we'll have them. And these are all A2 size cards, which means they measure 5.5 by 8.5. And on the 8.5 inch side, I score each of them at 4.25. And I do like to use a heavier cardstock for my card bases. Tammy now has the 100-pound in the store, and it works beautiful, or it is beautiful. So I'm just going to burnish my score lines on each of those cards I created card bases. And I realized I didn't fold one. And you could round your corners on these if you wanted to. The choice is completely up to you. I may, as I go along, I just don't know. I'll have to see how I'm feeling. All right, so I'm just going to put my card bases to one side. Now, the other thing I should talk about is I had these 2 dies in my collection. They're just a die that creates a little banner that's got little perforations in it. And I thought it was kind of cool looking, and I decided I would use it. Hi, RJ, that I would use it today. You don't need to have a die. I've got something on my hand from this morning. Sorry about that. You don't need to use a die. I will try and show you how to create these without using a die. Or you know what? You can just make your little tags straight. Just make it a rectangle. If you're not happy with your with an arrow on the end or a can't think of the word I want here. If you're not happy with that, you could just make it a rectangle, or you could make it a fishtail. There's so many things you could do. So just to explain that, that's where I got that from, was a dyed set that I had in my stash. I've had it forever. I don't know the name of it. Don't even know where I got it from. So let's get started. We're going to start with this thank you card. And I'm just going to make sure that that's going to be enough room in our shot. And of course, because as I got playing today, I had to sort of change things around a little bit. That's what I do. And I'm using some of the same paper, but some of it is different. The flower's a little different. I did make all my own flowers out of the collection paper, out of my scraps for this particular card set. You could use the flowers that come with the collection if you wanted to. I just really like making flowers, so that's what I did. I made some flowers to add to the beautification of my card. I've inked all the edges with a gray that I had in my stash. I'm going to give you measurements for the base. So my base measurement, or my layering cardstock black, is 5 1/4 by 4, and that will be the size of all of them on all of the cards, because I like to have a 1/4 inch around my edges, not the 1/8 of an inch when I'm making cards. You can make them to whatever size you want. And then my layering piece of pattern paper is 5 by 3 3/4. I rounded only 2 of the corners on this because I kind of liked this look when I laid it down. And then the 2 layering pieces, so you're going to need 2 of the pattern papers at 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. And I rounded only 2 corners. And then the pattern paper, you'll need 2 of these. They are 1 1/2 by 1 1/2. Thanks, Tanya. That's very kind of you to do that. So they're going to sort of sit like this, 1 in each corner, something like that. So we'll get things glued down, and then we're going to add the thank you, and I'll show you a little trick on how I do that piece of the puzzle. So I'm just put the card base to one side, get some glue on the back here. And again, I'm using the Artisan or the Art Glitter Glue. It typically is my liquid adhesive of choice. I'll just get this like this. The small squares, just give me 1 second, Tanya. I believe I said the pattern paper is 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. No, the cardstock is 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. So that would make the pattern paper 1 1/2. Just let me do the pattern paper. Yeah, so this one, so the cardstock is 1 3/4 by 1 3/4. The pattern paper is 1 1/2 by 1 1/2 square. Okay, so that is our base layer together. And remember, the glue dries clear. Hello, Rose. So glad you could join us and you found us. Awesome. So now I'm going to add my layering piece to my card base. And sometimes I do it this way. And sometimes I use the dry adhesive. Sometimes I build my card and then I add it to my base. Kind of just depends on how I'm feeling at that moment in time. So there is our base, or our layering pieces on our base. I'm seeing a little glue here. So I've discovered that this little, very grungy looking, I don't even know what it's called, but you can pick up adhesive with it. And I've discovered that if you're gentle enough, you can pick up some of the art glitter glue if it gets on your black cardstock or something and it's bugging you. Because normally it doesn't bug me, it dries clear. But every once in a while, something sticks out like a sore thumb, and then I got to fix it. And then we're going to bring down our 2 squares, and we'll put adhesive on the back of them because we're going to actually pop these up when they put them on the card base. Like so. Now, if you like a smaller border, you'll just have to, you know, decide which measurement you want to go to and then cut the other piece of paper. So when you do something like that, you don't like it. There we go. It's going to go there. And now the second one. And these cards come together pretty quick. And as I said, I basically just used my scraps. And when I do a project, I really don't throw anything away of my pattern paper until I know I'm not going to make anything else with it. So right now I've got a little bin sitting over here, and I mean it. This bin is full of some of the tiniest pieces because when I make cards, all of this can be used. You just never know what you're going to want. So I kind of hang on to it until I'm done the complete project or done with that paper line. And then I will cull pieces. So now we're going to get some adhesive. And this is the rolled adhesive that Tammy does sell in the store. This is the white. It's like 108 feet of this stuff. And I love it. It's not too thick. It's better when I leave it off to the side of the camera and cut it there. I just have a little holding spot for it in amongst all my tools, and that seems to work well. I've got a little hangnail on this one that I'm going to just cut away because it's bugging me. And then let's repeat on the second one. Now I am putting down my popped up elements first because that is going to help me. Thanks, Tanya. That is going to help me place the thank you because I did it top and bottom. All right, so let's get the backing off of these. Try and keep my workspace clean today. See how long that lasts. Need some tweezers. So I think Tanya's putting up the link to the dies and the stamps. I believe that's what I'm seeing there. They're part of the Echo Park salutation line. So this die and the stamp I used today are part of that collection. And like I say, it's just a nice size, thank you, because it fits nicely once I get it in my fingers. Not too small, but it's not humongous. So it's going to go like that when we get down to this final stage. So I have a little Teflon mat. Can't tell you where I got it from because I've had it forever. I'm going to turn my dies upside down, or my die cutouts upside down. And then I keep some it was just some foam stamp that or foam, I don't know what else to call it. Like you might wash dishes with it if you use a foam scrubby to do your dishes. And all I'm doing is I'm putting some of the art glitter glue right on the foam. And I'm only going to do one piece at a time. So I'm just going to tap it off. And then I just tap the back of the word. And because the glue dries clear, I'm okay with any little bits of glue that might get on things. So just let me get this off of my finger. And I like to use the tweezers because I have old fingers and sometimes they don't want to cooperate. And so I'm just laying it gently. So I'm not stretching out the word. I'm just tacking it down. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to take this piece of cardstock and I'm just going to burnish over the piece of cardstock. And the reason I'm doing that is because then there's no chance that I am going to catch a piece of the lettering and end up with it ripping or something crazy like that. So that is how I go about adhering my die or my die cuts, especially my word die cuts, to my projects. Because yes, sometimes I will go to the trouble of popping them up, but other times I don't have the patience to sit there and do every little spot. And so this is a little bit faster and an easier method. So I'm just going to take the U, not the U, the Y, sorry. And I'm going to put it in this position I want it first. Think about there. And just tack it down with my fingers. Get the O and the U, because they're going to sit just above the tail of the Y. Something like that. And again, I'm just going to take my piece of cardstock and that's going to adhere it. And then my flower, I had decided my flower, I wanted it to sit in between my two popped up squares, so something like that. And like I said before, these are flowers that I made from the collection. I've done a couple of little tutorials on how I make my flowers. So I'm sure you have your own method. I'm trying to decide which way I want this. I think I want it like that. And then push it down. And I am not going to put all the little bling on it like I did in my example, because you can decide where you want it. And there is card number 1 finished. And it gives it a whole different look in the black. I think I actually like the craft with the black lettering, but it kind of grows on me too. So it's preference, right? And then, like I say, you can put some little jewels on it. And I know Tammy does have some in the store. So that can go on the card. So there is number 1 card completed. So we're going to move on to number 2. Number 2 is this card that says "Shake It Off," because it just kind of seemed appropriate when I was making these cards. I'm just going to put the top in my glue for a second. Put that over there. So I'm going to give you some measurements again. So you're going to need another card base. So an A2 card base, and we talked about the measurements. So the artisan cardstock in black is 5 1/4 by 4. The pattern paper that we're layering on top of that is 5 by 3 3/4. And then this little strip that's going underneath, the cardstock is 2 by 3 3/4. And the pattern paper is 1 3/4 by 3 3/4. And our little stamped image is on a piece of white artisan that's 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. The black artisan is 3 by 3. And I did round the corners on the sentiment, and I did ink the edges of the sentiment and the 2 layering pieces. So let's put things together. And again, I'm not going to stamp with you because I've stamped with you before. The best thing I can say about stamping is make sure that the ink you're using is a, what's the word I want? Let me just pull it out. Normally I stamp with this pigment ink, this VersaFine, but I also like, and Tammy does sell these in the store, it's this archival ink. It's a permanent waterproof, and it works quite well too. But you just got to find the ink that works best for you. And the second thing I have to say about stamping is don't be in a rush. Always stamp when you got lots of time. Always make sure you've got some kind of gushy surface underneath what you're stamping. So I'll show it to you in a second. Once I get this layering on. So I have this piece of red rubber, a mouse paddle work, but this is what I use, and that gives me sort of the gush I need when I'm stamping. And I usually don't use the first one I create. I usually take a couple of stamps or stamp it a couple of times because I like to have my image, especially if it's a word sentiment, to be quite dark. And I find the first time you stamp, you don't really get good enough coverage as far as I'm concerned. So again, just putting my layers on here. And you want to make sure that you've given your stamped image lots of time to dry before you do other things with your paper, because you don't want to smear the ink. So my images have been drying probably for about a half an hour, maybe a little longer than that. But just give them lots of time to dry so you don't smear them. But the sentiment could be a happy birthday. Doesn't have to say shake it off. It could be a happy birthday. It could be a thank you. You know, just whatever you need the card to say. There we go. So anybody got plans for their weekend? My plan is to get some crafting done. So let's put the base, so the 2 layering mats, onto our card base. And again, I'm using the art glitter glue to adhere this. And I think I said before that sometimes I use dry adhesive. Today I'm going to turn this over because I like this side better. I'll show you why I decided to turn it over. And again, when you use the art glitter glue to put your base down, it does give you a second to move it if it's not straight or you think you need to readjust it because it's not straight. So I turned it over because I realized that I was a little off with my scoring, so it's not quite even. So if I put it on the back of the card, nobody's going to see that. But if it's on the front of the card, it'll bug me like crazy. So now we're taking that little rectangle strip we created, the 2 layers, and we're going to pop this up with some foam tape. And I am quite generous with foam tape because I don't want anything lifting. I'm going to do 2 more. Like so. And I usually, I'm going to bring it in about a 1/2 inch from the right-hand side of the card. Hello, Marguerite. How are you today? So glad you could join us. We're only on card 2, and it will stay recorded. And I am trying to give measurements as I go along. So I'm just bringing it in about a 1/2 inch on the pattern paper. And then we're going to pop up this sentiment. Now, what we're going to do is we're only going to put pop dots on this side of it because I'm going to put liquid glue and attach it right to my layering piece. So let's do that. Just gonna it's gonna sit something like this. So we'll take the backing off. Get some wet adhesive on that side of your element or your layering piece. Something like that, because I want it in the middle of my card, kind of, sort of. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our flowers that I made, and I'm just going to see where I want them. Thinking something like that. And again, you can put gems on your card. You could use the flowers that actually come with this collection if you wanted to. I'm just into a phase where I want to make flowers, so that's what I've kind of been doing. And the second one, and now our third one. Now remember, when you put flowers on your cards, it is going to make them a little thicker. So I don't know if that's going to bug anybody. No, I need to turn it. There we go. Usually find it takes me a second or two to get my flowers how I want them. And with the art glitter glue, it gives you that second. There we go. Something's not sticking. This one. It will. Hold them for a second. And there we created card 2. Now I found with the black paper, I definitely needed to go with craft because I laid this black paper on the black artisan and no, it wasn't doing it for me. But like this, I actually quite like it. And I just want to show you, I did originally do this card in the portrait style. And I actually like the look of it too, but I inked it pretty heavy. I don't know if you can see that, how heavy I inked this one. And I thought it was a little dark for some people, so I changed my style because I wanted 2 to be portrait and 2 to be landscape. but this turned out quite nice too. So just by changing the orientation can give you a completely different look in your card. All right, so there was card 2 finished. And we're going to move on to card 3. And this is where I use the die. Let me find what I did. Here it is. So here is card 3. And again, we're using the thanks die. And we're going to be using these flags, I guess is what I'm going to call them. I use my die cut to cut them out, but you can certainly make these flags without using any die cut. And I'm going to give you a quick little demonstration of what I'm talking about. And just going to cut. So I would start with the one piece being bigger. So I'm kind of making this one about 1 1/4, and I'm going to make it 1 1/4 by 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our scoreboard to help us with this. So if it's 1 1/4, we want to find the center of this particular piece, little rectangle. And 1 1/4, the center of that, because I've already done this, is actually 5/8, if my math is still right. So I'm just putting a little mark at where it is 5/8. And then I decide how big I want my arrow to be, or how deep I guess I want my arrow to be. Now in this case, I want my arrow to be a really shallow one. So I'm putting another little mark at about 1/2 inch. And I'm repeating that on both sides. Then I'm going to take my scissors, and from my center point, I'm going to cut up to that point I made at 1/2 inch. And then I'm just going to repeat it on the other side. And there you've now got your one layer for your little banner, your little tag, and just adjust it to whatever size you want it to be. So in this case, we're not doing any layering, so we want them, these particular ones are 3/4 inch. So that's what you'd cut your paper at, and then just do the same thing for your little point at the bottom of it. So that's my little trick of the day. You don't need the die, but I just kind of like the perforations in the die, and it kind of went nice with the paper and the collection, so that's what I decided to do. So again, I'll give you some measurements. I'll give you these measurements too. So the base, or the layering black artisan, is 5 1/4 by 4. The pattern paper is 5 by 3 3/4. And they go like so. And then my little flags or rectangles, I'm going to start with the longest one. My longest one is 2 1/2, and these ones are all 3/4 inch wide. So 2 1/2, 2 1/4, and 2. Okay. And let's adhere the 2 layers. You know, Marguerite, I like them both too. Just by using a different base cardstock, gave it a little bit different look. And I do like my craft. If you follow me at all, you know that already. I tend to make quite a few of my albums using the craft cardstock. And same with cards. I often will go to the craft card stuff when I'm doing my layering because it's just what I like to do. So now let's attach the base to, or these layers to our base card. Always make sure you've got your card folded the right way, right? Because I have, so the card is opening on your right-hand side. Let's get this up a little bit so we're going to be able to see. And we're centering that. And this is just a great way to use up your scraps. And we all have a ton of them. So sometimes when I want to just have an easy project, I'll just start making cards. I have to put a little bit of glue there because I caught it with the, try this one more time. There we go. All right, so we are going to pop up our little banners. We'll do 2 on each one. I think I might do 3 on this really big guy. And there we go. And now let's start adding them to the card. And I'm going to use my tweezers because that's just what I like to do. So I'm probably bringing it in about, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a touch more. And I'm going to put these on first. Except when you have something that didn't cut. There we go. As I call them, little hangnails. And I'm keeping about 1/4 of an inch apart, give or take. And the last one. And again, when you use a different pattern paper for your base, kind of changes everything too. And then we're going to bring in our little Teflon mat. And like I said before, this is my go-to when I'm doing, especially a die that's fine like this. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to stretch it out, meaning this piece of artisan cardstock. You don't want to misshape it while you're doing this. And the nice thing about the artisan, it does give you that second. I think I need a bit more. And I don't throw this little sponge away. I just keep using it every time I want to add some adhesive like this. I pull out my sponge, pull out my Teflon mat, and we're good to roll. So I didn't do this straight. I kind of angled it up the card, and I'm going to repeat that. And I'm kind of using, whoops, my banner. Something like there is where I want it. Kind of wanted it, still not happy. I'm gonna have to put more glue on the back of it because I waited too long. But that's okay, you're not gonna hurt it. I got too fussy with where it was in relationship to my little banner at the top. I do like doing it this way, putting the glue on the sponge, because it just is easier to work with than trying to put glue right onto the sentiment, and then you end up with it everywhere. So let's try this again. So I think there we go. I can live with that. And again, take that piece of cardstock, lay it over it, and give it a good burnish, because you shouldn't have any glue oozing out. So you're not going to get glue on this. And it's just safer that way. And then our little flower is going to go down here at the bottom. And all I did with the flowers is I shaped them, and then I had some little bit of gold sparkle stuff in my stash that I'd had forever. I don't even think they make it anymore. And I just sprayed the flowers with that. And there is card 3 completed. And like I say, they're all easy cards. You could jazz them up more by just thinking up a new idea. So that one's going there. And then this is our last card we're doing today. And the one I'm creating with you is a little bit different, because this is out of the 6x6 pad, and I didn't have any more of that. So I thought that the stripes would look nice with the technique and the idea. Again, that's that die I have, but you could create the same thing just by cutting your little banner the way I showed you here a few minutes ago. So let's talk about our pieces. So again, our base is 5 1/4 by 4. So that's the artisan. The pattern paper is 5 by 3 3/4. Our 2 layering pieces. The cardstock is 2 1/4 by 2 1/2. So that's going to make this pattern paper 2 by 2 1/4. And the second one is, let's do the cardstock first. It is 2 1/2 by 3. And the pattern paper is 2 1/4 by 2 3/4. So again, we're going to get our card base and just bring it in here. Let's layer everything together. Layer the things that go together. And then let's center this. Like so. Give it a good burnish. And I always like to adhere my layers together, because then it's done and I don't forget. Doesn't matter which way you have it laying. So remember, if you make these cards, please post pictures at Country Craft Creations to inspire other people to take the leap into card making. Because I often hear, oh, I couldn't make cards. And that's why I try to keep them simple. Because yes, I've said this before, I see beautiful cards out there, but can I recreate them? Well, maybe. But if I want them to look exactly like the card that I see, well, then probably not. That's why I very rarely do get into my dies when I make these cards, but I saw this die and I went, this is perfect for this. And I thought, I'm going to use it, and then I can show you guys how to actually create it without a die too. So put the top in the glue, and now let's start layering. Now on this one, I used a bit thicker twine that I had. This card that I'm going to make now, I'm using the twine that Tammy sells in the store. So it's the, I believe it's the natural twine. All right, so we're going to do some popping up of things. Once I find my scissors that I put out of, moved on myself. And we need one more piece. Probably go back and get one for the center too, because I don't like it when my layering pieces kind of bow in the center. It's just my, we're going to actually attach this base to the card base too before I move too far into this. Oh no, we're not. Not with this one, we're not, because we have to do our layering of the twine. So forget what I just said there, okay? We're not going to attach this base to the card yet. So I'm going to just do this. Take a look. I think I wanted probably about a ½ inch from the top, and I'm probably in about a ½ inch from the right side of the pattern paper. And so about ½ inch and a ½ inch, something like this. I'd be happy with that. And then this one, we're kind of doing it exactly the same thing. We're doing it about a ½ inch from the left-hand side and about a ½ inch from the bottom. But we're only going to need our foam tape on the left-hand corner and then along the bottom, okay? So when you flip it over, remember here, and then at the bottom is where you want to put the foam tape. And if you forget, well, then you can just add another layer of the foam tape on top of this one layer you've got down so you can have the thickness you need. So something like that, I think is what I'm looking for. Yeah. So let's take the backing off. And I don't have to worry about getting any foam tape in the center of this one because it's going to have this piece holding it up. So about a ½ inch and a ½ inch. Hopefully I have, no, that should be good. So, and then I'm just going to take a little bit of liquid adhesive so I can push it down onto it because I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go. Sorry that my head got in that shot. All right, and then for the friendship little sentiment, we're going to pop it up on the black cardstock. So let's get some more foam tape. Don't know if I'm going to want 3 or not. Maybe a little bit more in the center. Like so. Get the backing off. And then we're going to get tweezers. I'm just centering it. Like so. I'm happy with that. And then it's going to sit something like this. So what I've done is I've brought it into the edge of my black, on the edge of the pattern paper on the first element, and I brought it over to touch the side of the card over here. So we're going to pop, no, we're actually going to use liquid adhesive on this. I'm going to put a couple of pop dots, foam tape right along this side of it. And then the rest of it's going to be glued down with the liquid glue. So again, we'll dry fit it just to make sure that it's all going to work the way my little plan is. Something like that. Yes. And then just add some, get rid of the foam tape backing. And again, pretty much centering this in the center of the card. But you can put it wherever you want to put it. Something like that. There we go. And then we're just going to take our twine, and I know I've got more twine here than I actually need. And I'm just going to get some dry adhesive for this. Just make sure. So I'm going to wrap my twine completely around the card. And the reason I'm using the dry adhesive is I want the twine to stick to something. So it's not going to move around too much. So I'm just going to find the end of my twine. And I'm starting on the right-hand, whoops. I'm starting on the right-hand side if my twine will stick to my adhesive. Push it down into it. And then I just am going to wrap it. I don't know how many times. I wrapped it 3 times on the original card. I'm not sure if it's going to be 3 times or 5 times. Just see how it looks. So I'm just trying to layer them. I'm thinking maybe 1 more. No, I don't like that. So we're just going to do 3 times. And push it down into the tape. So this twine is finer than what I used on my original card. So if you're going for maybe a softer look, this will maybe be your option. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a little bow here. So I'm wrapping, make it a little longer. Let's get just a length of it here. I'm taking a length of it and I'm going to run it in underneath. And I'm going to just put it almost under the friendship. Something like this. So I'm scrunching them together. And then I'm going to add my bow. Make it the size I want it to be. Something like so. And then I'll cut the tails. I'm going to cut them with my other scissors. And then we will adhere this to the card base. So again, making sure my card is opening the right direction. Yeah, so let's get some liquid adhesive on here. And you could use dry adhesive. Just make sure you get it around the twine, because you don't want your twine to decide it doesn't want to hold or stay with the, something like that. And center it on your card base. And then, like I said before, you can go back and you can add little bling to it. You could use glossy accents and just do little dots with glossy accents, or the Nouveau crystal glaze. And there is our third card. And like I say, all it still needs is its little bit of crystals on it. I'm not going to bore you with all of that because everybody's got a busy day. So there are our cards. All 4 of them. I guess now there's 8 of them. Just going to do something like this so you can see them all. And that's what we created today on Fun Friday. Hope you'll join me next time. I do know what the project is. I just don't have it finished yet. It's close. It's close. We're using the Gentleman's Flurry is what we're using for our next Fun Friday project. So there are our cards for today. Hope you enjoyed them. Hope you learned something new that you can take and use in your crafting experience. And we will see you on the next edition. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.